Well, it's 5:10 and it is Monday, September the 18th. We're having some technical issues, but I believe anybody joining us online should be able to hear us, although the video is not working as it should. So we're going to proceed with the meeting. So I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Saugeen Shores Committee of Adjustment. And the first order of business is a land acknowledgement, and we will ask Hope to do that for us tonight.
Thank you, Chair. We acknowledge that we are meeting in the traditional lands and treaty territory of Saugeen Ojibwe nations, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and Chippewas and Nawash unceded First Nations. We understand that this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside of us and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to the acknowledging the truth about what happened to the Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to foster a better relationship with the First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to the actions that we move us forward on a path to healing, along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. Next up is an acknowledgement of any pecuniary interest a member can declare now or at any point during the meeting. Seeing none, we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes from August the 21st, 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Member Zimmerman. Are there any comments, questions about the meeting minutes from August the 21st, 2023? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion carries. We have no additional business. We have 3 public hearings though, and the first item 6.1 on the agenda is a minor variance application A-2023-024. The address of this application relates to 128 West Links Drive, the former town of Port Elgin, and I will ask the planner, Julie Steeper, to make her report. Julie, go ahead.
Thank you and good evening, committee. The purpose of the application this evening is to request a rear yard setback variance. The proposed setback is 1.5 meters, whereas the required setback in the zoning bylaw is 7.5 meters. The applicant is requesting relief for 6 meters. If approved, the application would recognize an existing covered deck and facilitate the construction of a deck addition to surround a hot tub. Although some of the construction has occurred in advance of this application, the proposal is evaluated as though the development is proposed and not existing. The property is located within the geographic township of Saugeen, south of Bruce Road 17 and east of West Links Drive. The existing deck and proposed addition support an existing residential use and permitted within the residential designations. Therefore, the application maintains the intent and purpose of the official plans. The property is surrounded by residential uses and a golf course. One of the main purposes of the rear yard setback is to ensure that there is adequate private amenity space provided in the rear yard. The encroachment relates to a deck which offers amenity space to the owner. The remaining 1.5 meter rear yard setback would still fulfill this purpose and is considered adequate. The golf course is directly adjacent to the rear property boundary, which is on the outside of the curve. And so there is no clear building line that is impacted by the proposal. The proposal would maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The proposed development is consistent with surrounding land uses and would comply with all required setbacks with the exception of the rear yard setback. The variance represents an appropriate form of development for the use of the land. It is not expected that permitting the variance will have any impact on the character of the area or impact the ability of adjacent property owners. to use their property for permitted uses. The variance is considered minor in nature. No comments of concern were received from agencies, and no public comments were received on this application. And this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steeper. The purpose of the meeting, of course, is to learn about the application and hear from the public. So I appreciate your comment that no submissions were made. Would you like to speak, Mr. Pilon? The applicant is here with us in the chambers. Okay, now we'll hear from members of the public. I don't believe there's any online. Okay. So now it's open to the committee to discuss. I see the Vice Deputy Mayor, then Member Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I see the owners here, and I guess, I'm going to support this recommendation, but I'm just wondering why was it built? I guess my question is, why was it built not within the proper setbacks to start with? Was it just was it an oversight, or like why was it built that way?
We need you to press. Is it pressed?
Yes. I purchased the property in February of this year, and the deck was built, and it encroaches by less than a foot.
Yeah.
So it's it was built when I bought the
That's
house.
fine. And I know the property well. I spent a lot of time out that direction. It has something to do with golf. But I drive through there a lot, and the backyard backs off onto a bush area, and it doesn't impact the character of the neighborhood. But I just was wondering why it was built the way it was originally. So,
Very close to the line. When I measured it, I saw it about a foot. It might have been different when the assessors or that
sure.
actually measure it.
Yeah, well, then it's good you're here today. I mean, we're fixing up a little minor variance, so I will be supporting it for sure.
Member Martin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am concerned about, I will be supporting it, but I am concerned about the further encroachment towards that line. But given the fact that it is bordering onto the golf course, there is still going to be plenty of green space and buffer because there's nobody actually residentially behind the place. Given that factor and that factor alone, I'm in support of this application.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment, question? My own question then is, I would like to see on future applications, when we receive a drawing, that the drawing reflect the location on the property. So it's not just, it's showing the entire property and where the deck is situated. The deck drawing was quite specific to the area where the deck was, and it didn't really show you just how much of the rest of the property was still going to be outside of the encroachment. So that's my only comment. But having said that, we have a recommendation before us that the committee approve minor variance application A-2023-024 has attached, subject to the conditions on the decision sheet. And I believe we all should have received some potential decision sheets. Let me just catch up with this. So I'm willing to entertain a motion moved by Member Martin, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. So the motion is that we approve this minor variance application, and the decision sheet would read, just before we have any further comments and questions, that this application is granted subject to the following conditions: that any future development on the property conforms to the provision of the zoning bylaw, and the decision applies only to the proposed development as indicated on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. And the reasons are that the variance maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan. The variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The variance requested is desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings, and that the variance is minor in nature. We have a motion before us. Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? The variance is granted. We have two other applications before us. 6.2 on the agenda is a sign variance application. The address related to this is 760 Goderich Street. And I believe the applicant is online, but I will first ask the manager of planning and development to make the report.
Yeah, the title changes, but I'm still the same. So this is sign variance for non-accessory signs at 760 Goddard Street, made by the owner operator of the All Seasons Motel. The variance is to allow non-accessory signs to be installed along a fence. The bylaw itself does not permit non-accessory signs like this. In fact, there's a general prohibition against non-accessory signs on billboards or on fences in town. Only existing billboard or non-accessory signs are permitted, existing as of 2015 when the bylaw was passed. In the report, there is the complete details of information from the applicant, and there's also a comment we received from a resident. They're there for your reading, and in our review, we recommend refusal. It was clear in my recollection of when the bylaw was prepared that council was very clear they did not want to see fence signs like this proliferate in town. And I don't think there should be a change in that, and that's my recommendation for refusal.
Thank you. I know that the person making the application, Mr. Patel, is online with us. Mr. Patel, would you like to speak?
Nope. I guess it is what it is. So there's no comments here, but I see there's a lot of sign around town on fence, and that's one of the reasons I was just trying to help local business. But if this is what town wants, and this is what town wants, right? So I wasn't really trying to do for money. I was just trying to help my fellow business owners, small business. We take a big hit over COVID, and we're just trying to scratch each other's back. And yeah, that was the only reason. There was no other intention here.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Are there any members of the public online wishing to speak to this application? Not that we're aware of. Okay, I'll open it up now to the committee for comments, questions. Councillor Stack.
Thank you. I think my only comment when I look at, so I drive past this area every day. I live not too far from it. You know, I would support, I know, you know, I know what the report says. I'm not sure that this is the basis upon which we should be rejecting this, given the commercial nature of this area. I mean, even if you look kitty corner to this motel, there's, you know, a fairly bland sign filled small strip mall. The signs are all over the place for the stores. And in our next application, we're allowing an extension of that power of the sign on the new building just down the street from it. I understand the purpose and intent of the bylaw. I'm not sure in a commercial zone where a motel is on the corner across from a gas station, across from another strip mall, that this is the basis upon which we should be declining the signs. I don't personally think the signs are a beautification of the area by any stretch, but this is a fairly commercial area, particularly at this corner. So, you know, I would certainly support, I don't agree with the I understand the merits. I think on this particular point, I would support a variance based on the particulars of the neighborhood and the specific corner that we're talking about. Thanks.
Member Martin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm against allowing a variance for this. In my respectful submission since 2015, as we all know, there has been an ongoing practice in the town to try to keep the integrity of the natural beauty of the area, even within commercialized areas. And when you look at on this fence, I'm just looking at the picture there from this, there are 4 different signs, very pushed together. And in my respectful view, that really clutters the view of our community. I think it's wonderful that Mr. Patel is doing an outreach to help with the community. But that and sign advertising has some degree of effectiveness, but currently in our internet culture so much of the advertisements for places such as Great Lakes Epoxy, Great Lakes, I think it's concrete, Bruce County, I think that's a contractor, can be found online, and we're not as dependent as we were 20 years ago on signs. So those are my respectful submissions.
Thank you. Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, if we turn down this recommendation, I think it's terrible, terrible, terrible precedent setting. I know precedent setting and community adjustment really isn't something that we look at, but for me, that corridor, it wouldn't hurt my feelings that they were all removed. These kinds of fence signs, I just think they're not attractive to our community. It's sign proliferation. And for me, every time I drive by that area, I shrill. I think we should really be careful what we wish for here. If we turn down this recommendation, we're allowing that one business owner, we better be willing to permit board fence signs along that commercial corridor. I don't think that's the kind of community we want to see with sign proliferation. So I'm adamantly opposed to this, and commend the owner for wanting to help out small business. I get that. But for me, regardless of the names on the signs for the donor, for the sponsors, they're all good businesses, but there's other ways to promote business. And I don't think it's along our corridor. I like Mr. McKay's comment. I think he's right on about beautification with hanging baskets and beautifying your town. I think Mr. McKay is right on with this. So I support him and others who feel the same way in our community. So I support the staff recommendation. I think staff's right on with this one. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Member Wallace?
Thank you. My concern is, I do not think that these signs do cover by our bylaw, but I do see that there's perhaps some precedent setting through the Tim Hortons drive-through and also through the car wash. So I just want it to be recorded if that was prior to the bylaw, prior to 2015, and that's why those signs are being permitted.
I'm going to ask the manager to answer that question.
Well, they're those signs that that were at the car wash and the Tim Hortons drive-through existed before the bylaw was adopted, and bylaws don't have a retroactive application for removing, at least this bylaw doesn't, so.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to that, if the ownership of either of those properties change, that would enable an opportunity to have those signs removed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how we've applied the ownership changes in the past.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Can I just add something to this?
Member Beck?
I think the only thing I would add is that I agree that the signs don't look fantastic, but it's not like the fence is an existing structure, isn't it? It says, I think in the report, that having a sign on a building is acceptable. And so I think you could argue that the fence, it wasn't put there to put the signs on. It's an existing structure that's being used to put signs on it. So if we were to get rid of that, then I don't understand why you can put a sign on a building or in a window, but not on a fence, would be my comment.
Thank you. I believe a sign on a building, perhaps the manager can clarify, any sign that does not have a direct relationship to the business, there would be a question related to that. So it's that's part of our sign bylaw too. That is that correct, Jay?
Yes, there's really two components that they are on a fence, which that's just a design element. Most fences are there as either obviously a buffer privacy, but they can provide a decorative purpose as well. But these are non-accessory signs, which are not permitted in our bylaws. So they are to be associated with the business that's there. They may have a temporary sign, say Great Lakes Epoxy worked on the epoxy somewhere on the property, they could have a sign for a few weeks, but then they'd have to take it down after the work was done.
Counselor Stark?
Thank you. So just to clarify, if there were 3 or 4 signs that said All Seasons Motel, that would be permitted.
No, those are on a fence. They'd have to be on a wall, at least as our and on the wall, they'd
Okay.
have to be
Yeah, understood. Yeah, okay.
within the band
Okay.
as expressed in the bylaw.
I understand what people's positions are on this. I think maybe I'm just a bit, I think we should be applying some commercial reasonableness to this. It's a very commercial corridor. That particular corner includes a gas station, an old strip mall, and now a motel. So we're talking about the beautification of the town. I'm just not sure I encourage us in future to think about the commercial nature of particular areas in the town and recognizing, as other members have said, that the Tim Hortons and a few other areas have signs. I understand those were retroactively permitted in, given the nature of the bylaw. I just think when we talk about beautification, I think there's an opportunity to just in future, just think through the appropriate application of this concept of beautification in a very commercial corridor. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
I would just like to add something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Patel. Normally we let you speak at the beginning, but I'll grant you the ability to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, this is the first time I'm doing this, so I don't know how it works. No, I just want to add is, I know we are trying to beautification of the town, but at the same time, like, we only got tourists 2 months or 3 months a year. Like rest of the year, we depend on all local business and local work. We work with each other, and that is one of the reasons I like to support local business. And this is all I have to say. So, for example, if I go to Southampton right now, there's a hotel that's advertising all kind of business on their LED signs, and that's fine. But France, I'm just trying to understand the whole process here. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Yep.
Okay, I don't believe we need to have an actual motion to refuse. Do we need to do
Well,
that?
I recommend a motion so that it, as in the recommendation, so that it can be documented in the minutes as affirmation from the committee.
All right, well, we have a staff recommendation to us that the Saugeen Shores Committee of Adjustment refuse sign variance application for the All Seasons Motel site located at 760 Godrich Street, Saugeen Shores, for the reasons outlined by the committee in their deliberation. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Member Zimmerman. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of refusing the sign variance application? All those in favor of the refusal of the sign variance application? Well,
Yeah, that's the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes.
so that's the motion. So I just wanted to make sure that when you understand when you're voting, that you're voting for the refusal. So that's the motion. So all those in favor of voting for the refusal? All those opposed? The motion carries. Okay, we have another application, 6.3 on the agenda. It's a sign variance application. There's no number on this one, but the location is 1020 Goddard Street, and it's related to the Power Link development. And I will ask the manager of planning and development to make the staff report.
Okay, so for this one, the owner of PowerLink has made 2 requests. One is for a ground sign taller than the permitted height in the bylaw. Permitted height is 2.5 meters. They're requesting a sign of 3.7 meters in height. And they're also requesting approval of a facial wall sign on the north side of the building, as shown in the photo, that exceeds the permitted sort of band where it's normally permitted at the first floor. They're wanting it at the top of the building. There was, this was the, rather, ground signs, I'll start with that first, are permitted at this location. This is a highway commercial zone, and sort of from the church that's at the south side of the Home Hardware north is generally the highway commercial area, and ground signs are permitted. There are numerous ground signs that exceed 2.5 meters, some as high as 8 meters, which is the height at the new food basics, and the shortest sign is about 2.5 meters, and that's at the building right at the intersection where Carson Supply is. So there's a wide range, but I'm recommending, because this is just a 3.7 meters and we can regulate the height at that height through a permitting, that be approved. I'm also recommending approval of the wall sign, because similar wall signs were permitted by council through the site plan agreement. And this would just be facing the north traffic. It was not included on their drawings at that time. The applicant is making the request now. So I think a recommendation to have signs facing traffic is consistent and can be recommended.
Thank you. I don't believe the applicant is attending the meeting. Well, are there any members of the public online that wish to speak? Okay. I have a couple of questions that I'll start this one. The sign, just confirm that the sign on the north side of the building is already installed. Okay, so this is
Correct.
another case of it's already there. Now it's coming before the Committee of Adjustment. Okay. The other thing is, again, with the drawings that were submitted, it's not possible to understand the orientation of the sign. So could you please clarify? And I do know that the foundations are already in place, which I believe are for this sign. So it's not parallel to the building. It's not, it's the other direction. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe it's perpendicular to the building.
And so, and the electronic portion is the lower section of the sign.
Correct.
And what is your understanding of why this sign is needed? What kind of messaging is intended there?
I'm not sure what the applicant is intending to put. The bylaw requires or that states that it can be, signage related to businesses at that location. So it'd have to be accessory. So other businesses, say on churches, I'd advertise, upcoming events that might be at the church. I don't know.
And is it your understanding that the placement of the sign, the foundation is there, and to me, the foundation looks really close to the sidewalk on Goderich Street. So, and the bulk of the sign is up over, the standards that come down into that foundation. There's no issue whatsoever with the distance back from the sidewalk to this sign. Because the reason why we enable buildings in the highway commercial zone to come closer to the sidewalk is to sort of bring the life of the street closer to the pedestrian activity and have the parking behind, which creates a more interesting streetscape. But is there still space there that doesn't make this sign be menacing over a sidewalk?
Well, I think so. It was a location for the sign was shown on the site plan drawings in the general location here. I don't believe it was any closer to the sidewalk than what was indicated on its site plan. And I don't think it was installed any closer than was indicated on the site plan. We can confirm that if that's important, but I don't believe so.
Well, I would appreciate if you did do that, because, the point of pushing buildings closer to the sidewalk is to still enhance the pedestrian experience. So then putting big bulky signs right up against the sidewalk, that kind of detracts from that. So are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation before us that the Committee of Adjustment approve sign variance application for the PowerLink site located at 1020 Goderich Street, Saugeen Shores, subject to any conditions outlined by the committee. And there were no conditions outlined. So can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Stack. Is there any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, then I'll call the question. All those in favor or of this recommendation? Any opposed? It's carried. The only other thing on our agenda is a notation about the next meeting for the committee, and it's noted as being October the 16th, 2023. And I'm assuming that there already are applications for that meeting.
Yes, there's likely to be one, but, and one minor variance and one sign variance, I think. Is that correct? Yeah.
So I will then call for adjournment. Mover, seconder. Moved by member Zimmerman, seconded by member Wallace. All those in favor? The meeting is adjourned at 5:41.